database objects. Today we have created the Google Drive link. I will share all the notes at the end of session. You can get it from there. For offline people, the QR code is in the notice board. Right? So yesterday in our backend database, we learned about database objects. We discussed about database objects and SQL language. So every database comprises of various objects like views, stored procedures, figures, macros, modules. But I told you that some databases supports limited in some versions, some supports more. Reports, all these database objects. And SQL language categorized into operations categorized into three. What are those? Yeah, data definition language, data manipulation, and data control. Data control, three options are there. So today we are going to see now practically how do we build everything. Already I explained database models. To design any database, what are the database models required? To design any database, what are the database models required? 4 models required. What are those? Conceptual model, physical model, logical model, and entity. We know the differences between them, the physical, logical, and entity. So today we will learn the commands and the operations, how to handle them, and all about the database to deal with. So first we are connecting with the database server using our client tool, and that is Workbench. So now here, as we already discussed, that there will be different types of objects. Now we will learn how to create database, how to maintain database for any application. The entire framework architecture we already learned. So once we learn the commands according to that framework, we will build one complete database for a application. I showed you one IEEE project. So in that we will take some modules, and based on that we will design the database. But for that we need to learn some operations, how to handle. Already we discussed that from the GUI tool you can manage everything without any command, but as a developer we need to learn the commands. So first we are going to see the commands, how to handle them. First we are going to learn about creating a new database. We are going to learn how to create a new database. What are all database objects we know? Now we will see how do we create a new database. So the queries you can write in a separate query window. What you do is open MySQL Workbench, and in this MySQL Workbench you have to go to the query window. You can select this button also, query button, and it will open the query button. That means the query tab, it will open. Here you can write the query. What command you want, you can write. and you can execute the command. The result of command will be generated and shown to you. So first step, how do we create database? To create database or any object, so we have a create command. For that we have to use create command. So it is used to create various database objects. So create various database objects, like you can create various database objects. You can create a database, you can create so view, we can create a stored procedure, we can create a trigger. All these we can do. So by using create command. So how do we create the database? You have to run the command create database and the database name. You have to use the database and database name. Or you can also use create schema and the name. So database is also considered as a schema. Already we discussed that databases are schema based, schemaless and schema based. We learned three types now: structured, semi-structured and structureless. Three kinds are there. So we are creating a database and configuring the database. Let's see, first we want to create one database. Then we have to use the command. In the query window, we have to run the command create database and database name. Database name is suppose shopping. That is the database name. We want to create a database by name shopping. That's the name. Usually here also you need a line terminator, semicolon. And after that you select the lines and you can execute the line. This command, this button is execute command. And when you execute, it is going to run and it is going to create a database. Whether your command successfully executed or not, you can see in the status bar. Now, once it is there, you can refresh the schemas. You can refresh the schemas. It will show the database is there by name what? Shopping. So we can create one database by using this create. Later we will use for various other objects also. So a database is created by using this. And whenever database is created, by default database is configured with predefined objects. We can manage these objects. Yesterday already explained what these are. What is a function, what is procedures, we discussed about them. So by default, it will give a structure of tables, views, stored procedures and functions. Now, once the database is created, as of now, no database is active. After creating the database, there is no database active. If database is not active, sometimes what happens by default, one database will be active and you don't notice it. And you try commands, you will assume that you are working with a database, but it is actually working on another database. Then how do we make the database active so that we are sure which database we are dealing with? How do we start any means using any database? For that you have to have a command use and the database name. Database name is what? Shopping. That is the database name. You see here we have some databases already available here. But which database is currently active? You can observe now. When I execute that use shopping, then you can see it is bold now. It is highlighted. That means now which database is active? Shopping is active. Now actually, suppose here I am creating create table, and I am creating table, suppose TBL country. Actually, later you will learn this command, but actually our intention is to create a table called TBL country for world table, for world database. But currently which database is active? Shopping. So it will create in this location. That means if you want, if you are not aware of this, then you will select one database, but you will be writing commands for another database. So make sure that which database you want to work with, the database is active. Then how do we do that? We need to use the command. What is it? So you need to use database name. Database name is some world, and you run this, then it starts using that world database. Actually, through command we do this. Through command we run this. So which database you want to use, you have to define that shopping, and that shopping database is active now. So after creating the database, next select database to start using it. So what you have to do syntactically, use database name. Suppose here I say use shopping. So creating one database and start using that particular database. Here syntax is there. Here example same. What we do, create database. The database name is what? Shopping. That is the database we define. So first we are creating database and we are using it. Other operations we will see on database later, right? Initially database is created and we started using the database. Now in the database, as we already learned, there can be so many objects, but data is maintained in, there are so many objects, but data is maintained in database is maintained, data is maintained in tables. So what we have to do, we have to create tables. So let's see how to do that. So we created database and we started using the database. Now we will see here working with tables. So MySQL tables, we will see how to handle them. So already we know table concept. Table provides a schema to store data in rows and columns. Table provides a schema to store data in rows and columns. It's a structured data in rows and columns. So how to create a table and what are the basic things we need to know about the table, right? So you can use create command for creating a new table. Syntactically, you have create table and the table name. So this is the basic command. This is the basic syntax. So we have to create a table by using create command. Create table and table name. And while creating table, some important points are there. So we are designing a table. Now in this table, we need to store some data. Already we discussed our database models. So I showed you the database models. So the database models, we have the conceptual model. This is related to our one project, that is conceptual model. In the conceptual model, we are having only the name of the modules. After the conceptual model is certified, it is reviewed, then we will prepare the physical model. Physical model have table name, the field names, and a data type. And after that, you have the logical model where you define the relationship. And the final model is what? Here. And this model will give you the table name, field name, relationship, and all. So when you are creating a table, for every table, you have to mention three basic details. That means here, table comprises of fields. So table comprises of fields with the following details. What are the details a field usually have? Field name, data type, and it have a constraint. Fields will have three important points: the field name, the data type, and the constraint. Table comprises of fields and every field contains three details: the field name, the data type, and the constant. So how you define this syntactically? Create table, table name. So table name, in parenthesis, you have to define here field name and data type and the constraint. You need to configure in this way. Field name, data type, and constraint. You need to set in this way. You can define multiple fields. You can configure multiple fields in a table. So field name is the column name. What is the data you want to maintain for that? So already we have an entity diagram. In this entity, suppose we want to create some details like customer details. And in this, we have first name, last name, nickname, so many details are present. So this is the field name. And it is the data type. And what are the data types available here? What kind of data that field have to handle? And what is the constraint? These we need to understand. That means we need to understand about the data types and constants. How to handle data type and constant. Actually, when you are creating a database table, every table can have some constraints. Data type, what is the purpose of data type? Data type determines what type of data you can store. Generally in JavaScript also, if you already are attending JavaScript, you know JavaScript have primitive types, non-primitive types. We already know about those. What is data type in JavaScript? Generally, you learned it is data structure. It defines not only what type of data we can store, it also defines the range of data. That means minimum how much, maximum how much range we can configure that. So here also similar. So when you are creating a table, you need to mention the field name, data type, and constants. Now, what are the data types? That means what data types actually MySQL supports, how we can handle different data types. So, for example, you see here, yesterday already I told you, there are so many types. We will know about few types. So all are not required every time. We will know about few types. Yesterday I showed you when we are creating a table here. So directly here. So there is table name, some TBL demo. And when you are defining the field name is suppose some ID, some product ID, something. And you see the MySQL data types, we have so many types. These are all different data types. Different data types are available here. So all are not required now. Level by level, we will discuss about different types. We will understand about basic types first. Actually, what are important data types that we will learn? Not all data types required. All data types are not required. Some important data types we will discuss here. We will learn about that here. So actually, what are the important data types you need to know is first field name we know already. Here we will discuss about so data type. In the tables we discussed about MySQL data type determines the type of value you can store in a reference in a field, the type of value you can store in a field. Data type determines the type of value you can store in a field. What type of value you can store in a field. And some of the some of the popular MySQL types are some important MySQL types. Actually, I'll just classify here. Number types for numeric. What are the number types available and how do we deal with them? Usually number types you have an int. So this is for an integer value. You can see there is a decimal for decimal values. That means int and decimal. Int and decimal. So these are number types we are having. Int is for, you know already, number types. Actually in JavaScript, what are the number types we have? JavaScript number type means signed integer, unsigned integer, floating point, double, decimal, hexadecimal, what else? Exponent, binary, octa, begins. Am I right? This all comes under the types, number types. Here, if you want to store a signed, unsigned integer, then you can use an int. If you want to store a float, double, or a decimal, then you can use an decimal, right? So you can configure here signed and unsigned, and it is a float, double, and decimal. That is number type. How you configure the number types. Next important, we are having a string type. Actually, separate types also there, but we don't need them. This is enough. That means what other types are available? Like it is having a float, it is having a double, but this is enough. Integer and decimal are enough. So we can also have separately float. You can have separately double. You can have them. That is only for float and double. But usually everywhere we just use a decimal which can handle float, double, and decimal. Sometimes what happens is we don't want to use more memory, we want to use less memory because decimal allocates more memory even to handle a smaller value. Now you are sure that you have to just handle a smaller value, then better you give it as float or you give as double. So float is to deal with float, double is to deal with double. And you know already what is a float and double type of values, right? So these are basic number types. Another important, we have a string type. Generally, string type is defined by using varchar. Varchar is a string type. The basic string type is to handle by using varchar. Actually, there is more data types here like char, nchar, nvarchar and all. Long text, medium text, text also there. But mostly varchar is enough. You can also use long text. So we can also use medium text. So you can also use a char. These are to handle the string type. So varchar is enough to handle, but if you are dealing with lengthy type, then you can manage by using this. So here, these are basic number types and string type. These we will learn one more time. When we are working with particular data, we will see how to handle the data using the type. We will see that. Initially, what are the basic data types I am giving? Next, we have a number and a string. We have a date type, date and a time type. Here. Actually, to handle date and time, only one is enough here. You can see here you have a date time. By using date time, you can handle, but they have different options like you can use date, you can use time, you can use what? Date time, you can use an year. All these are basically for date and time values. Only date, only time, both date and time, year, you can manage. So we have the number types, the string types, and the date and time types. Here you don't have a type for Boolean. Usually Booleans are stored with true, false. Here we don't have a type for Boolean. Then how you manage Boolean? Actually in JavaScript you will learn JavaScript Boolean is handled using 0, 1. 0 refers to true and 1 refers to true, 0 refers to false, right? So here if you want to handle Boolean, right? Boolean type. So we have to use, actually you should know that there is no specific Boolean type in MySQL. So then what you can use is for Boolean type, we have to use tiny int. Tiny int. It uses 0. This is false, and 1, that is for true. Tiny int is used for handling a boolean. Actually, there is no specific boolean type. There is no specific boolean type. So we need to define by using tiny int. Tiny int is actually number type. So by using this type, you can handle a numeric value. Now one more option is, suppose we want to deal with some images. We want to store some images. You don't have any data type for images. Actually in database, what we do, if you, these days, we don't convert images. Suppose for a user, you want to store some details like username, password, mobile, email, and his photo. Then for photo, what should be data type? For photo, what should be the data type? Actually, these days, what we are doing means we are not trying converting the photos. Generally, what we do earlier is in database, in order to store a photo. So actually, we will create one photo field. In this photo field, what we do is some user uploads a photo here. User is uploading some photo. Then generally what we do, we convert this photo into binary. We convert the photo into binary and we use that binary in the database. And again, when you are reading, we will convert the binary into an object. Object to binary, binary to object. This is called as COM marshalling. In computer sciences, we call this as COM marshalling, COM, Common Object Model, COM marshalling. COM marshalling is the process of converting the object code to byte code to object. And in modern technologies, it is not recommended. In modern technologies, we don't recommend COM marshalling. It's a very old mechanism. These days, we don't prefer that. Why? Because when you are converting from binary to object, object to binary, firewalls may block that conversion. That means you have firewalls on your device, data coming from another location, conversions are blocked by firewalls. That is the reason these days what we do, we can do this, but we don't recommend this. Then what we usually do is, generally, if you want to store any data, then what, like photo, what we do is we have server. In the server, we have a folder. In the server, we will create one folder. This photo is uploaded into that folder. That means the photo is saved in that folder. This folder path is used here. The folder path is used here. That means what is the data type of image? Data type of image is a string. Data type of image is a string. In that image, we will mention about the folder name and the file name. Folder name and file name. So whenever you are accessing, it connects to that particular path, it will get the path and it will use it. These days, this is the best way to handle the data, especially images and all we maintain like this. Earlier, people used to use lot of conversion, converting binaries and all. We don't recommend that anymore in the model. So we use this technique. That's the reason you might have observed. Suppose when you are working with some APIs, you see, suppose we have API, NASA API. This is some NASA API. You already worked with this kind of APIs when you are in JavaScript. In JavaScript, you will learn about them, how to deal with these APIs. So if you haven't learned, you will learn later. Actually, in these APIs, suppose we are having data of, suppose, Mars rover photos. And I selected, you see, this is the data. You see the data type, field name, data type, everything they will mention here. And what are the data types they are using here? This is date type, this is a string type, this is an integer type. And you can see here, there are the data related details. In this, if you are opening any data, you can see here it is having the details like this. And you see this ID is a number type, sol is a number type, am I right? And image is a string type. It is a path of image. Image is a string type. That means it is a string type. And it is the path of image. That means in that path, some image is present. This is the path of image. I copy this path and I open this path. You can see it gets me that image and it will show that image here. Image and show that image here. That means these days we don't use the conversion mechanisms. We don't use the conversion mechanism. We always prefer using the type in string. In the string, we define and we access. Suppose you want a video, you want a picture, then we don't prefer converting them. Already you learned in HTML how you embed videos. So usually I told you when you learned about HTML in your UI technologies, like we don't prefer directly using a video element. Video, audio elements are present. We don't prefer them. What we do, we embed the videos by using iframe. Iframe. So you will learn about iframes. You will learn about how to embed them. I told you the best technique of uploading the video means embedding the video in the pages. In HTML, you know that. That means these days we don't upload videos into database. We don't upload images into database. We use their path. We use their path. So technically, if you are dealing with any image type, in the data types, you can see there are so many data types are available. In the data types, if you are dealing with image like type and handle image like type, usually we use the type called big int. This big int is used for that. Big int is used for allocating memory for a large binary integer values. We can use the big int and you can do that. Later, when we discuss about front end back end connection, working with data, images and all, I will show you what is the possible way of converting, and without converting, how to directly use the path. We will learn about that. So as of now, here in database, you cannot store any image. You cannot store any image. We have to use from the front end. We need to configure that. I will show you later how to handle that. We will discuss. So initially you need three important types. What are those? Number types, string type, another date and time type. And Boolean types are handled by using what? Tiny int. These are the data types that you need to configure, right? So when you are creating a table have a field name, another it have a data type. Okay, let's put a simple syntax up to this. Means how do we do here is create table and table name, some TBL products. And this table is having the field like we have a product ID and data type I defined as integer. We have name. This is like varchar. And how many characters varchar? Some 30 characters varchar. We have some price. So its data type is what? Decimal. And how many decimal number you want to allow? Some 6-character decimal you want to allow. So we have like stock. Stock can be defined as what? Tiny int. Tiny int. Because it is a boolean, we want to set true or false. We can put a tiny int. So we have like manufactured. So manufactured, MFD, manufactured, and we want to define it as a date. So just date. You don't need both date and time. You need only date. Date. We don't need the time. We need only the date. So when you are creating a database table, every table will have a field name and a data. So you have number types, string types, and Boolean types. Boolean types. So based on these, we handle all the content, all type of content we handle by using this. So this is not yet done. You just learnt about field name. Another one is its data type, how to handle data type. Now important is every table field will have a constraint. We can configure a constraint. Constraint allows to control the behavior of this field. The behavior of the field can be controlled by using this constraints. So what is a constant and how the constraints are used for fields? That is important. So field name, data type. These are all the data types. Now let's see how it handles the constraints. That means how it is going to manage the constraints. So next important is MySQL constraints. MySQL constraints. So technically, constraint controls the behavior of field and its value. Constraint controls the behavior of field and its value. And MySQL table field can use various types of constraints. Can use various types of constraints. We have primary key constraint, unique key constraint, foreign key constraint. We have a check constraint. We have not null constraint. And we have default constraint. These are the constants most commonly used for database fields. Whenever you are defining a field, every field have a name, every field have a data type, and it can have an constant. Constant is not mandatory, but for certain requirements, you need to define some constraints compulsory for every table. So what are these constraints and why we use them and how to define them? I will tell you, because creating these constraints is again a process. That means you have to learn some commands. Through commands, you will learn how to deal with them. Initially, when you mention a table have a field name and a data type and about the constants. And what are the constant is, let's see what are these. First important, we need a primary key constant. We are learning about them. How to create them also we will see. Initially we are learning about the constant. Later we will see how to create the constant, modify the constants. You will learn all the commands. So what is primary key constant? Primary key constant is nothing but every table can have several fields. Can have several fields. In a table, you can have several records. Several records. How to identify every record? To identify every record needs one field which should be unique. Every table record, every table row must need a unique identification. If you don't have that unique identification, then you cannot identify it. Suppose you have 100 people. In 100 people, we want to identify any person, then his name is not enough, because with the same name, so many people may be there. His name, his course name, so are not enough. Then what we do, for every person, we give a unique ID. And through that ID, we can refer him. The ID that cannot be given to another. That means you need a unique identification for every record in the table, and that is defined by using primary key. Primary key. But important, a table can have only one primary key. A table can have only one primary key. It can have only one primary key. So in a table, I want another field also in such a way that the value I given in for that field should not be given for another one. That means in a table, I want a field in such a way that the value I given for one person, the same value should not be used for another person. Then can you create one more primary key? No, primary key can be only one. Then others are created by using unique key. Unique key indicates that unique key, there can be multiple unique keys in a table. That means what happens here? Suppose you given product ID. Every product will have an ID, and we given product ID as one, and its name is TV. We have another product. So the product name is mobile. And for this, we need a product ID. I cannot use the product ID one again, because it is given as what? Primary key. If it is given as primary key, I cannot use that again, right? So primary key must be unique. The value of this mobile should not be 1, it should be 2. Like that, I want another field also with unique field. That means every product have a code. Every product have an ID, and every product have a code. Suppose every product is having a barcode, am I right? Every product is having a barcode. When every product is having a barcode, actually barcode is a 16-digit number. Barcode is an 16-digit number. Usually in database, it is stored as a 16-digit number. Not 16. According to barcode standards, it can be 13 or 14. 13 or 14 or 12, depending on the barcode standards. We have different barcode standards. You can have a 13 character code, we can have a 12 character code, we can have a 14 character code. Barcodes usually a number. Barcode will show stripes, but under the stripes there is a hidden number for that. That number is used while reading the barcodes. So usually this barcode must be unique for every product. Then one barcode I given for this. This is one barcode, suppose it is having. This barcode cannot be given for another one. Another one also should not have the same barcode. It should have a different barcode. Then this key, barcode key, can be a primary key. This product ID we already defined as a primary key. Here also product ID is defined as a primary key. Can I use another primary key for barcode? No. Then how you define this? Then you have to mention this as a unique key. So you have to define as a unique key. Unique key indicates that the value that you mentioned for this key cannot be defined for any another. It should be unique. So why we need a unique key? Because primary key can be only one. In a table, you can define only one. You can have multiple unique keys. Unique key advantage is the value taken for one record is not allowed to take for another. So you need to be unique for that. That's important. So we have two constants. One is primary key, another unique key. So what is primary key? Every record every record in database table requires a unique identification, a unique identification. So it is used for accessing, you can simply say for querying and manipulating specific record. It is used for querying and manipulating specific record. Manipulating means editing, deleting and all. So every database table, every table can have only one unique, one primary key. Every table can have only one primary key. Only one primary key. So that means you can simply say that one primary key field. That's important. Every table can have only one primary key field. You can have only one primary key field. Right. Don't worry about how to create and all this. Just currently we are discussing about them. Then we will create them. We will see how do we create these keys and modify them and use them. Okay. Next, another one we are having. What is it? Unique key constant. Unique key constant. A database table requires few fields. Database table requires few fields with unique values. Unique values. The value given for one record cannot be used for another record. You cannot have multiple primary keys in a table. Hence, a unique key constant can be used for field. Table can have multiple unique keys. Unique key fields. A table can have multiple unique key fields. So every product have a barcode or QR code, something extra is there, and it should be unique again. And can you mention it as primary key again? No. Every table can have only one field as primary key field. And others you need to configure as what? Unique key. So primary key constants, unique key constants. So another one, we have a check constant. Foreign key last I will explain. Check constant. You can have a check constant. Check constant is nothing but check constant is just like a validator. It is just like validation. What is that validation? Validation is nothing but when you are trying to store a value in a particular field, this check constant will verify whether the value is matching the condition you mentioned. That means you can define a condition for a value. That means you want to tell that the value must be between this range. You want to tell that the value must match this condition. That means condition means, suppose you want to allow only a even number. Then what is the constant? You want to allow only even numbers. Then what is the constant? We have to make sure that the value entered by user is divided by 2 and remainder is 0. Then it is an even. Am I right? We need some logic to verify whether the value is matching with the condition or not. And if it is matching, then allow. Otherwise, not. That means you can validate the value that is entered into a field, and you can store the value only when it passes the validation. And for that, we need a check constant. Check constant. So check constant ensures that the value that you are expecting, only the value is stored in the database field. So it allows you to validate the value defined in a field. For that, you can use this check constant. So generally check constant. So it is used to check the input value, check the input value by matching with any expression. It is used to check the input value by matching with any expression. It allows to store value into field only when it is matching the given expression. It uses a validator to validate the input value. To validate the input value. So it ensures that contradictory and unauthorized data is not get stored into database. That is the main purpose actually. Contradictory and unauthorized data is not get stored into the database. That means the data that you are expecting, only that data will be stored. Contradictory means the data you are expecting and data they input are not same. They are not matching the requirement. Then we can avoid the data. We can simply prevent the data from storing into the field. That is a check constant. It checks the value before it stores the value in a field. Usually, remember, this is not checking the data type of value. It is not checking the data type of value. It is checking the condition of that particular value. Data type is already verified by using type. You mentioned a data type for every field. It is strongly typed. That means it verifies, is it a number or a string, any type, it will verify. This is not verifying the data type. It is verifying a condition on the value. That means not verifying what is the type of value. It is verifying whether the value is matching our condition or not. Right. That means it is greater than certain or less than certain or between certain values, or it is having a certain behavior type. All these it will verify. That is check constant. We have a check constant. Another important, we have default constant. We have default constant. Default constant is nothing but, default constant is simply like, you, you know, generally in JavaScript, suppose you declared a variable X and document dot write, you are printing the value of X. What is X now? Undefined. That is the default value. That means if there is no value defined, what is the default? Default, it takes some value. What is that value? Undefined. Undefined as an value. That means undefined is also a type. Na? It is undefined is also a type. By default, it uses the type. That means you are expecting a value in a field, and if any value is not entered, then it will be null. it will be null. That means it is empty. It will not store the value. If you don't provide a value, it will be null. That means we don't want null. If they are not mentioning any value, take the default value. Default value can be modified. You can modify. They are not giving anything, take one. For example, you want a product to add in a shopping cart. And when you are adding product in a shopping cart and they are not selecting how many quantity products they want, by default, 0. By default, it is 1. That means, do I need to select a quantity for any product? I don't need to select any quantity. By default, it is 1. If you want more, you can add more. You can change that. That means the default constant for product quantity in a shopping cart is what? 1. There cannot be 0. It will be default 1. And for 1, it will not allow, it will not ask any quantity. Just it will add, you add to cart, default it will add 1. You want to change the quantity, you can change. That means, can you change the default constant? Yes, we can change the default constant. What does default constant means? If a value is not defined for a field, usually it will take null as an value. And if you want the value to be default taken for every field, for that particular field, then you can use default constant. You can set default constant. What value to be stored default also you can decide. You can handle that. So default constants. So here important is, it is used to configure a default value for a field. Default value for field. If a value is not provided for field in a database table, then it is set to, set to null. It is set to null. You can avoid null and use a default value. Use a default value to store. So by using default constant, so we have a primary key constant, we have a unique key constant, you have a check constant, you have a default constant, you have a null constant, not null. You have a not null constant also. So previously what is happening, you set a default constant. Due to that, what happens? If they are not entering any value in that particular field, by default it will take some value. But what is not null constant? It indicates that if they are not providing any value and there is no default value, then it will not allow to save. That means it indicates that the field is mandatory. That means you cannot keep it null. It is mandatory that there should be some value. So if there is default value, it will take. If there is no default value and you are not supplying any value, then not null indicates that I can't save this. I cannot allow you to store. That means it ensures that the field is having a value. You cannot leave it empty. You cannot leave it empty. Actually, by default, every primary key is automatically not null. That means for any field you set primary key, it is automatically set with not null. That means primary key you cannot skip. You have to mention with a value. It cannot be null. There must be value. By default, all primary keys are not null. By default, all primary keys are not null, right? So what is null? Null makes sure that the value is not empty. There is some value. If default key is not there and value is not there, then it will not allow you to save. It will prevent saving because not null indicates that there must be some value. You must define some value. So not null constant, it ensures that the field is not empty. it will not allow null. It will not allow null. It is used for required fields. It is used for required fields. If a default value or explicit value is not defined, then it will not allow to save data. It will not allow to save data. It will not allow to save data. That is not null constant. So can you have multiple default constants? You can have, no problem. Can we have multiple not null constants? Yes, you can have. Can you have multiple unique key constant, check key constant? Yes, but you cannot have multiple primary key constants, right? Another one is foreign key. Foreign key constant. Foreign key constant. Another important is foreign key constant. Foreign key constant is nothing but, already we discussed about the logical model. Huh? So when we learned about database models, we discussed about the logical model. Logical model configure the relationship between the tables. So usually foreign key, it configures the relationship between fields in tables, between fields from multiple tables. So it is a primary key of a table used as a reference in another table. It is a primary key of table used as a reference in another table. So you can have multiple foreign keys to configure various relationships, like what are different relationships we are having. So 1 to 1. So 1 to many. And many to many. So we have 1 to 1, 1 to many, and many to many. One to one relation, one to many relation, and many to many. These depends on different data. We will take different data for that and we will try to implement that. What is, so one to one is nothing but, as I already told you, one product can have one barcode, and that barcode can be used only for that product, cannot be used for another. So one barcode for one product, one barcode. This kind of relation is called as one to one. That is called one to one relationship. We define like, because actually barcodes table is separate, in that all barcodes will be there, and products table is separate, in that all products will be there. One barcode from the barcodes table is assigned to a product, and the same barcode cannot be assigned for another. Am I right? That means every product have one barcode. Every barcode is assigned to one product. So this is called as what? One to one relationship. What is one to many relationship? One to many relationship is nothing but, suppose every customer, every user can buy many products. Am I right? That means there are so many products and user. User can buy how many products? Any number of products, many products. That means the number of items user can purchase can be many. If user can purchase only one, that is one. That's not like that. So a user can be one and the products he can buy is many, right? That means you can have many. This is one to many. Suppose many to many means, many to many is nothing but many users can buy only one product. Am I right? Many users can buy only one product. Am I right? No. Suppose there is a mobile iPhone 16. Only you can buy iPhone 16. Huh? Others cannot buy. Right? Any number of users can buy the same product. Am I right? It is accessible to many people. That means many people can use one iPhone and one iPhone is available for many. They will not share the same iPhone, right? But they will use the same product with a different code, different ID, different reference, but product is same. That means many products you can buy and one product can be used for many. This type of relation is called as what? Many to many, many to many. Later you will see so many others. For that we will see proper data. How do you configure these relations? So these are all constant. This, remember, I am not teaching you detail about constant. I am just giving an overview about them. Every constant we have to detailedly learn again. That means we need to learn how to design those constant and use them. So when you create any database table, for that we have the important points. What are those? Table will have a table name, field name, data type, and constants. Constants. The important constants are these: primary key, foreign key, unique key, check key, not null, and default. I hope everyone understood. What is primary key? A unique reference for every record in the table. Why you need a unique key if there is a primary key? Because primary key can be only one. If many fields, then you have to define the unique key. What is check? Ensures that the value is matching your condition before it is saved into the data store, right? Not null indicates that it cannot be null, it must have a value. Default indicates that if you don't provide a value, it will take some default value. Foreign key used to configure relationship between the fields in tables. That is the concept of these constants. So when you create a table, these all are important to define. We will learn one by one how to design it, but see the basic command I will show here. So currently shopping is ready. In shopping, there is a table. So tables, and we don't have any tables here. To create a table, we are using create table and the table name, some TBL products. And what are the details you need to configure for that? First, I want to define the field name. Field name is what? Product ID. It requires a data type. Data type is some integer and it needs a key. That means I am giving what? Primary key. That means we are using primary key constant like this. Later, I will detailedly tell you how to modify them, how to add them, what are the restrictions also, we'll see that. What is the next one? Next one, suppose I am giving a name. Name is what type? Varchar. How many characters? Some 30 characters varchar. We have a price. So price. Price is what type? So price is suppose decimal type. Decimal type. Decimal type. And how many decimal? 6. Some 6 character decimal we are defining. Similarly, we are adding, suppose some, what else you can give? Suppose I am giving manufactured MFD. That is what type? Date type we are configuring. Just roughly, because we will first take one project example, we will design the structure, and according to that, we will build the tables. You will build the tables. First, we are learning the concept of this. Okay, now I selected this and I execute the query. Then when I execute the query, you can see here in the tables. So a table is created by this details. And you can see the table contains columns and it is having all these details. Now, actually, it is having product ID, it is having a name, price, and manufactured. This is the table structure. That is the table basic structure we are having. And this table is having, observe here, you can see table is having columns, foreign key, triggers, indexes, and all. In the columns, you can see all these columns are ready. And actually table is empty. There is no data inside the table. Now we have to learn how to add the data into table. How do we add the data into table? But for that, we have to first see here. You see, actually data all are null. Later, we will learn how to store the data and all we will discuss. Temporarily observe here, name I given as TV, price I given something, manufactured I given some date. Here again, important is you need to learn in which format we have to store the date. Usually, what is the format of date in any computing technology? Year, month, and day. Year, month, and day is the format. And you see, usually when I try to apply that, it is running some command and it is showing error. And what is the error here? It is showing an error. Error is nothing but because it is saying that error is related to the primary key. You haven't mentioned the primary key value, product ID. Product ID is primary key, na? And primary key, I already told you, default, it is not null. Not null. That means it cannot be null. It must have a value. It must have a value. Don't worry about saving the data. Later you will learn about it. Just I am explaining the process here. And now if you have the data successfully executed, it is stored now. The data is present here. Data is present. Commands we will learn. All the commands we are going to learn. Don't worry. This is just only the concept to make you understand how do we configure a table. So syntactically how you define first basic is like this. Create table and the table name. So some table name, TBL, suppose TBL products, something like this. And here we have a product ID and we have an integer and we have primary key. So we have name, some varchar, so some 30, some price, decimal, some 6. So you can have decimal fractions, how many also. You can mention 2 decimal places or anything you can add. Another one is manufactured is date. And how to add other keys also we will learn. But in every table, what is the basic requirement? Primary key. How to add primary keys, how to add foreign keys, how to add default keys, check keys, all these we are going to see with example. How do we do that? This is a simple table creation, how we can create a table. Now we will design table with all these keys, different types of keys, and we will learn how to insert data, how to read data and others. That we will see in next session, right? First you try this and in the next session more concept will come. Now we will take one project example. According to that we will build the database tables. We will learn all the constants, how to write them, how to write a primary key, foreign key, all the constant we will see. Okay, tomorrow will continue, right? And already given this backend drive link is there for everyone, right? Google Drive link for offline people, it is already there. Huh? Is it? Yeah. That's the Google Drive link actually. And for offline people, the drive link is already given there. In the notice board, it is there. QR code you can scan and you can get. You can't copy this code, that is very lengthy. Right? QR code is already there in there. You can check it. Okay, na? Right? For online people, I will share a link here, or they will join with that link, or our admin will share the link, they will join. All the notes I will upload here from the previous, whatever notes are there till today, all these notes I will upload here. Huh? Means this backend related until yesterday, all the notes I am uploading now. Okay, from the beginning, all the notes is uploaded here. Everything you can get here, right? So tomorrow we will continue with this. Okay, right.